Welcome everyone to the CFO Swinger Watch Report technical analysis video for the trading week of March 17th through 21st. The following research in each and every single weekly report is a chance at applying your own learn and earn trading system. On top of that, the combination of the weekly report and this technical analysis video will give you a complete top-down analysis on the overall markets and individual trade ideas. Overall, every report will be giving you full guidance and navigation in the upcoming trading week, allowing you to cut down on the extensive research time that is usually needed to achieve a successful trading week. So, make sure to join us if that is something that truly aligns to your trading goals. Take a look down at the description box to start that trading journey with us. With that, let's get into the market. So, this week we do not have an official swing trade idea for us, but I have plenty of tickers to go through with you guys. So, let's first go off on the markets, the S&P 500 or ticker symbol SPY. So, this is a pretty messy chart here on the weekly time frame, but the reason why I am on the weekly time frame is that, well, let's take a look at the SMAs. So the price action last week and the past couple of weeks have been dire, right? We've been continuously moving lower and lower, making textbook lower highs and lower lows, and eventually breaking the previous low that we saw in January of this year, January lows. And obviously, we are in a nice downtrend, right? Short to mid-term. Now, here's the big question that I have been asking myself. Are we in a new long-term downtrend? The answer is not yet. Maybe, but not yet. All right, and the reason being is that we have yet to see the price consistently staying below this weekly 50 SMA or this dark blue line, right? And last week we did indeed close slightly below it. So last week's closing price was at 562.81, whereas the weekly 50 SMA ended up closing at 564.07. So to me, this is just a potential for sellers to be capitulating at this weekly 50 SMA, where it can allow room for buyers to come in to allow the price to bounce back up higher and pivot right from this weekly 50 SMA to allow the price to come back up and obviously retest with the shorter time frame SMAs, the weekly 10 and weekly 21 SMAs here as it continues to curl downward. Okay, so sometime in the future, all right, if we do see a pivot this very week, in the next couple of weeks, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I expect the price to stay above, go back above first of all, and stay above the weekly 50 SMA and eventually retest the weekly 10 and then the weekly 21 SMA and ultimately continue to move back down as it rejects both of these shorter time frame SMAs on this overall weekly time frame. All right, so that is my current thinking right now. So that means this week and maybe even into next week, depending on how this week goes, we could be seeing a potential pivot and a very nice bounce. All right, now if I go back on the daily time frame and I bring back my levels here. Okay, so we have a lot of overhead supply that we need to worry about. Again, last week on Thursday's low, we officially entered the negative 10% correction territory, right? We saw a bunch of headlines and a lot of people got scared, but when we see the average volume line, right, there is more buyers participating here as the individual selling days continue to go lower. And so last Friday, this was a pretty good solid bounce with the overall volatility, the market volatility or VIX of the S&P 500 continued to contract lower. And so this is pretty much a good initial indication that we could be seeing a continued bounce into tomorrow, Monday, and possibly retest all of these major support levels that I've drawn here for you guys and again highlighted in yellow. So once again, just to remind you guys, the $600 level, the $585 level, the $574.50 level, or if you just want to round up, $575, have all been 3 significant downside targets that I've been aiming for. And obviously, the sellers did a much better job of sending the price lower and breaking below all of these 3 downside targets since I set them up since I believe it was maybe late January. Yeah, around late January. So with that in mind, back to what I was saying about the overhead supply, I am expecting at least maybe this week for a retest of the daily 200 SMA, which should begin to flatline like this. So let me actually bring out my, if I can find a brush, there we go. So the 200 SMA should flatline like this, allowing the price to come back up and retest with the daily 200 SMA, but that will require the price to retest this declining 10 SMA and break over it for a brief time and retesting and ultimately retesting with the daily 200 SMA. And as all of that is happening, I will want the price to kind of break over, kind of overarch and overreach rather the 200 SMA and kind of retest this 574.50 level or 575 again if you guys want to round up for an official retest so that we can see a rejection lower. And at that point, I would expect the daily 21 SMA, which is also declining and catching up very quickly to the daily 10 here, around 580-ish at that point. Okay, and again, for people who are asking me, how do I predict these things? How do I know where the SMAs are going to be? Well, this just comes from 8+ years of experience with working with my SMAs, my 4 main SMAs, the 10, 21, 50, and 200. All right, so there's your answer. So with all that in mind, be careful out there. If you're trying to short down here, kind of a bad idea, I would say, but you should always make sure that you guys are keeping that short perspective to the downside, even if we're seeing a bounce, because at any point, at any given time, we can see a large rejection due to some sort of a catalyst like Trump speaking and talking about tariffs again, or any of the upcoming tariff deadlines like on April 2nd. That's a little hint there. Okay, so with that in mind, let's take a look at our first ticker here from specifically the Momentum Mentions list, the MM list. All right, so this is a very, very nice sneak peek. Well, I guess it's a full peek into the rest of the report this week. So for any of you guys who are not CFO Swinger Watch Report readers and a part of the private CFO Discord community, you guys are getting a full treat on how the reports go, right? So this is FCX. This is the first one in the MM list. And the reason why I have continued to put this ticker in this week's report from last week's report is that, well, look at the relative strength compared to the overall markets, right? Especially last week. Last week, the price continued to stay bogged down by sellers. On the other hand, FCX revisited a very important level at $35. So again, I pointed out this support level, this very significant support level last week, and that if we were to come back down to retest it, we need to hold it. And we had a very nice B-shaped recovery back to the upside, allowing the price to get back over this kind of upper range resistance level of 37.50-ish, and ultimately even breaking over this upper range resistance level and heading back up towards this nice base resistance level at $39. So again, the price continues to stay within the parameters set up by this base between the significant level of support at 35 and significant level of resistance at 39. So your entry level is still above 39.10, and eventually, if we continue to stay above all of these 3 major daily SMAs, the daily 10, the daily 21, and the daily 50 SMA, which was able to close over last Friday, we are good to go for a very nice explosive move up higher over 39, and eventually we can get back up towards the 40s. So again, in the MM list, I've given you guys the option contract that is most likely going to be useful for us for this trade. So make sure you guys go read that report. Okay, and then the next one that we have on the MM list is LMND. That's right, lemonade. So I am bringing this back again since it was last week's main swing trade idea. But, I couldn't just forget about it for this week because of how great it looks. So LMND, definitely something that you want to watch out for this week because of how tight the price action has gotten. I mean, the price ranges for the last 2 weeks have been phenomenal as the overall markets have continued to sell off to the downside and officially entering that 10% correction territory. So LMND, hopefully we can see a very nice big crush of sellers for a nice explosive short squeeze run to the upside. Again, we're expecting a short squeeze due to the high short interest percentage that I've pointed out last week in the official swing trade idea of the week. And so if we were to see that, I want to see a very nice explosive and very quick, not just an explosive, but very, very quick. So a lot of velocity into that move all the way up into the $38 resistance level, this horizontal level. And ultimately, if that does occur, I will want to see a coinciding retest of this macro descending resistance trend line. And if that occurs, we're most likely going to see some sort of resistance. However, I'm going to be expecting some more buyers to come in to bid the price up higher and ultimately give us that larger time frame breakout over $38, in which if you go on the weekly time frame, we could be setting up for that second leg up higher from that initial first leg up higher that we saw last year in November. Okay? All right, and again, take a look at the report for the official option contracts that we want to be looking to execute on for this specific swing trade momentum mentions list. Right? And last but not least, I have IBIT. So, as I've stated in the list in the report, we're going to be continuously looking at the long side for many of the tickers out there, but I still want to make sure that we're looking at shorts, right? Specifically shorts to the downside, right? Not the short-term time frame, just to make sure you guys don't get confused. I'm talking about shorts to the downside. And so the reason why I am most likely going to be looking for a short trade on IBIT, which closely follows Bitcoin, because again, this is the iShares Bitcoin Trust, is that, well, Bitcoin is relatively weak. And I even gave you guys a short trade idea on Bitcoin last week, which has worked out pretty well so far. And it looks like it's going to continue to work out well this week. And IBIT, I'm not just interested in playing a bounce in this one. And I just want to focus on a short to the downside because, well, on the weekly time frame, everything is pointing towards a continued move to the downside, and we're about to see a potential weekly bearish crossover on the weekly 10 that's curling lower and the weekly 21 SMA that is quickly rising up to meet up with this declining weekly 10 SMA. So even if we do have a bounce for most of this week, or rather all of this week, I'm going to be expecting the price to consolidate sideways rather than forming a new uptrend. Yes, I do know and I can see and observe that there is a very nice hammer candlestick, but that is still not enough to convince me that we're going to be seeing a vertical V-shaped recovery to the upside, right? And I've explained why as well in the report too, relative to Bitcoin itself, so make sure to read the report. So again, IBIT, I will want to see some sort of a rejection somewhere around this huge amount of supply that has been formed from the last 2 weeks. So maybe around that sacred whole number level of $50. Maybe you can see a rejection there. Or to put it simply, if you go on the daily time frame, if we are able to break below last Friday's low, so below $47, that can officially be a nice entry point for a short to the downside. All right, and I have a bunch of, well, not a bunch, but 3 specific targets to the downside for IBIT: 41, 38, and 32. All right, it will be amazing if Bitcoin can, well, not Bitcoin, but specifically the Bitcoin Trust, the iShares Bitcoin Trust, or ticker symbol IBIT, can come back down to, again, consolidate within the parameters set up by the previous consolidation range that we saw from a lower range support level at 32 and an upper range resistance level at $41. Alright, and again, please take a look at the report for the official option contracts that we need to execute on for this specific swing trade idea in the lists. Alright, so that is it for this video. If this technical analysis video was very insightful and most importantly, applicable, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you're new here and aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. But on top of that, if you're watching this video when it just became public and you would like to watch this video a day earlier when it's private, the only thing that you need to do is become one of the many readers of the CFO Swinger Watch Report, which will automatically give you full access to the private CFO Discord community where you can expedite and further your learning in trading. Alright, so good luck, and I'll see you all tomorrow morning.